One more flower appended to the SPACINNOVA basket. Spartificial unveils a subsequent podcast to the SPACINNOVA series with the enlightening knowledge from Mr. Cran Middlecoat. Today's podcast would address your concerns towards aerospace. So, right people and right time equal success. So, tune in and work towards the triumph now. Hi everyone. Welcome to the SPACINNOVA podcast series by Spartificial. This is the second episode of this podcast, and today we have with us Mr. Cran Middlecoat, who is an aerospace STEM educator and an airline pilot as well. So, and someone who understands the student ecosystem very well, right? So, hi Cran, how are you?
No, I'm doing very well, thank you, Jid. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for Cran for giving your precious time. So first of all, we would like to know your journey from a commercial pilot to an aerospace STEM educator.
Sorry, how did I find that journey?
We would like to know how did you start from becoming a commercial pilot or to becoming an aerospace. How did you switch to becoming an aerospace STEM educator?
Well, it sort of all happened by itself, really. I was flying the Boeing 787 Dreamliner, and at the time, my wife was trying to find some work, and it's very difficult for an airline pilot to find work for your spouse, which doesn't have a fairly detrimental impact on your family life. So it had to be something we did ourselves. And I was at a little Australia's first international model rocketry meet, and I saw a little one or two teacher school with a handful of kids looking at these rockets, and they absolutely loved it. And I thought, that's it, I've got to be able to take this to them. So that was when we started investigating. And then how it actually transpired was I was diagnosed with a brain lesion and had to undergo surgery, which has left me with permanent brain damage. And I'm no longer allowed to fly because of that. And so now the focus has become STEM education. That's pretty much where we're at this point in time.
Oh, that seems really inspirational to students who are listening to this of how you switched to a different space. So, what initially got you interested in the aerospace domain?
Oh, well, all my life, I wanted to fly. I can't remember a time when I didn't want to fly airplanes. It's all I ever wanted to do. So it was a foregone conclusion that I was going to be a pilot. My father was a pilot. My grandfather was a pilot, and it was just, that's all I ever wanted to do. The STEM education came about because I actually discovered I quite enjoyed working with children and getting young people inspired, planting seeds of inspiration. And that came about, and I sort of connected the two together, and my love for flying and aerospace and educating young people. And it all came about that way.
Oh, great. So we would also like to know about what you do at Aerospace Gigs. Like, what is the firm about?
Well, we want to show young people that they don't have to go to Google to problem solve. They've got a smart device between their ears. And so when we do our education workshops, it's using basic things, building rockets from soft drink bottles, using water and compressed air. There's no flammable fuels. There's nothing combustible. It's all using recycled, repurposed items, emphasizing the use of sustainability. And right from kindergarten age, we have our workshops aligned to the curriculum so that young people and teachers can get a benefit from it. And for instance, tomorrow I'm doing Year 5 students. We're talking about the solar system and using rockets for that. Using water and compressed air rockets work well. And your kids can get a spectacular result with the skill set they already have.
Great, sounds great. The work seems great. So, after all these years of experience with students, like different students, what is that one advice you would like to give an 18-year-old? Like, let's say an 18-year-old Cran, right? So, you are starting, you're just getting out from your school, high school, and after that, you are entering the university for your bachelor. So, what would be that one advice or one skill you would recommend to that guy so that they can excel in life?
Don't ever be afraid to fail. It is okay to fail. Don't ever try to be perfect. It's okay to make mistakes because that is where the learning is. I say fail is not a word, it's an acronym. and it means first attempt in learning. FAIL, first attempt in learning. And so I wish I'd been told when I was 18 that it's okay to make mistakes and that you don't have to be perfect. Don't even bother trying to be perfect because you'll never be there. You'll never get there. So it's okay to fail and allow yourself to make mistakes. Learn from those mistakes.
Okay, so any one skill you would recommend to a guy like let's say he's dropping out from school now, like he has completed his high school education. So any one skill you would recommend to him or her, so that which is you think very basic and very necessary.
I think it comes back to those skills of being able to, like I say, allowing yourself to fail. The skills you need to have a solid in aerospace, a solid grounding in your mathematics and your good English and so forth like that. That's absolutely essential. But get away from this thing thinking that you've got to be perfect. Practice does not make perfect. Practice creates confidence. That's the important thing to remember. So, in terms of a skill, is begin to accept failure as best you can. Work smart, work hard. When you're doing study, only do small blocks at a time. In high school, I never did more than half an hour study at one time. Half an hour, 10-minute break. Half an hour, 10-minute break. Give yourself regular breaks. That's the important thing. I wish someone had told me that when I was very young. So there's actually one teacher in high school did give me that. But you've got to have those skills to work smart and not necessarily working hard.
Okay, so as you talked about failure, like I also feel like being in the same space and like you being an aerospace guy, I feel that a failure plays a very important part in that, right? Because it teaches you a lot more than the success. So how do you overcome those failures, and how do you what will you tell the students like if they fail for more frequent times, right? So how what will you tell students in order so that they can overcome that failure?
Don't give up. Just don't give up. You'll see things, and even if you like, sometimes you'll find yourself in a position where you've got to try and problem solve it, and you've got an idea, but you think it probably won't work. Do it anyway, because it may lead to the success you need. You'll discover something along the way. And aim for progress, not perfection. Because if you aim for perfection, you're going to constantly get more critical of yourself, and that's not healthy. If you aim for progress, you'll always achieve progress, and as you do, celebrate those achievements, those little points of progression along the way. So that's the important stuff. Is aim for progress, not perfection, is what I say.
Great. So talking about this, you are also in this startup space, and I feel that startups have allowed students and individuals to fail more. Like they have given them an authority that they can fail and learn from that, right? So India is booming a lot in the startup systems. So like there are startups who are working in the same space, the aerospace domain, and the space ecosystem is also booming a lot in India. So how is that ecosystem in Australia, the startup ecosystem, I would say?
Well, we're starting to see movement, which is very, very good. For many years, actually, I'll go so far as saying decades in Australia, the aerospace industry has been stagnant, which was a great shame because we had some fantastic innovations early on. In drone technology, Australia had a very successful drone called the Jindavic, which is Aboriginal for the hunted one. We developed a lot of navigation equipment, the flight data recorder. And anyway, a lot of that talent that produced those innovations, and indeed the innovations themselves, went overseas, and other companies capitalised on those. We are seeing some movement in Australia in both the private and the government sector, which is good to see. However, it is very slow. And one thing we have is we're very heavily regulated here in Australia, and that does take time to overcome those regulations to get to a point where you can operate effectively.
I feel the same thing for the Indian ecosystem as well, where the regulations are very strict here as well. So you talked about drone technology, right? So as you specialize in drone technology, what areas do you think that are unexplored in terms of the implementation of drone technology? Like what are some areas which are still unexplored in terms of drone implementation? and you feel have a great potential in order to apply drone technology?
Well, I think drone technology is here to stay, and in terms of doing the jobs, which it's like pilotless aircraft for defence is going to be very good. You're not actually putting human lives on the line. I think the technology, no doubt, exists to have pilotless passenger carrying aircraft. That is absolutely possible. However, we have a big psychological barrier for people who want to actually get on board an aeroplane which doesn't have a pilot. I think that's going to take almost a paradigm shift in one way to get people to do that. And I'm really not sure how that's going to happen and how long it's going to take. I think it's going to be quite some time. But I believe it will happen eventually. But in the short to medium term, there's definitely going to be jobs for pilots operating drones, and AI isn't here yet. It's definitely coming, but drones for rescue, drones for like detecting unexploded ordnance in mines, and so that sort of thing is very, very good. So there's certainly potential in that. In doing reconnaissance, air sampling, where you've got to be at very, very high altitudes, was actually quite hazardous for a pilot to be at. That's where you'll see drones really come into their own.
Yeah, I also feel like that people still believe in autonomous cars, like autonomous vehicles, like which run on road. But in order for people to believe in autonomous airplanes, it is still difficult because of the risk factor it involves, right?
Well,
Because
yeah, I
yeah,
think that the risk factor is probably the lesser of the problem. I think it's just the psychological factor of getting people to actually board an aeroplane without a pilot. I think that's just going to take a long, long time for people to accept that. I certainly couldn't bring myself to getting on board an aeroplane without a pilot, that's for sure, unless I could fly the aeroplane myself.
definitely. Like I guess artificial intelligence also comes into play here, where what do you feel like artificial intelligence can revolutionize this space, like the aerospace domain, where we can on board some autonomous aircrafts with the help of artificial intelligence. Like, can it be more this efficient that it can do autonomous decision making, logic, all of these?
I think it definitely can be a great asset, and that'll come into its own with drone operations. There's certain things which I think artificial intelligence will eventually learn, is how to look at weather and determine the best way to divert around weather. And that's something that comes down to a lot of experience and just plain gut instinct that you develop as a pilot to do that sort of thing. Artificial intelligence it's either yes or it's no, but I think it will happen. It will happen in years to come, and it certainly does play a part. And I think not just in the aerospace industry. I think in all areas. Like for instance, there was an artificial intelligence working with a legal system, and a human lawyer and an AI lawyer were given the same task, and both of them came to the same conclusion, but the AI did it in a matter of minutes or seconds, or it took hours for the human to do it. So that's where you're going to see AI really coming into its own. And it's in fields like that, I think it'll be accepted much sooner than operating aircraft, for instance.
Great. So, as a startup, we are currently providing training programs to students, which gives practical training, as in the technology and the concepts you learn, you implement it in a practical project, right? So, what we have observed after all of these programs, that students are able to retain more and understand the concepts in a better way when they practically implement the projects. So, do you feel that this system can also be implemented in the schools and the universities? And like, I don't know about Australia, but in India here we only teach theoretical subjects like theories, and we do not give the students the practical implementation of the concept that they learn. But is it the same in Australia, or is it different?
Well, I think we are seeing some practical implementation of this in Australia. However, the problem is that we're missing basic fundamentals, like just basic mathematics is being left, and it's becoming quite quite poorly uptaken, and young people have got a very poor take of mathematics in some schools. I'm seeing high school students not comfortable using a ruler and a pencil, and so I think in Australia it's almost gone too far one way with smart devices, and it needs to actually go backpedal at least a little bit in order to get people understanding those fundamentals, and then you can apply that a good understanding to the new technology, and I think that's a much more effective way of doing things.
Okay. So, you are a STEM educator, right? So, do you only have you interacted with students from India, like who are working in a startup or who have their own startup?
Not as such. I've interacted with students in India, talking to school students on doing similar through Zoom. I've done that before. But in terms of startup students looking at doing startups, I've not spoken to anyone like that specifically.
So after interacting with the school students, I feel that the people who are or the students who are working in the rocketry domain or aerospace domain seems very promising. So what do you think about their intent and their will to work for the aerospace domain?
What domain is that again? Sorry, the
Like you have recently, I guess, interacted with a rocket club. What do you feel about them? Like however they like what advice would you give to another, let's say another rocket club who is working in the same space? So one advice that you would like to give to a rocket club or who are working on rocketry, drones, all of these stuff. So how should they go with the like how should they plan the whole thing?
start small. I see university students who just try to go too big too quickly, and they miss the fundamentals of rocketry. I mean, it's called rocket science for a reason, and it is challenging. Start small, build small rockets, develop your skills, and work your way up. That's the way to do it. I think in India you can actually mix your own propellants. In Australia, it's illegal to do that. So we have to use commercially purchased rocket motors. So that's where you buy a kit, and then you fit that with a commercially made rocket. So start small, like the A, B, C, D size motors, and then work your way up to high power. And that's the biggest piece of advice: is you got to walk before you can run. So and discover things on the way. Do destructive testing, blow stuff up, and like really have fun with it. But start small, which is more cost effective, and learn your craft that way.
Yeah, I also feel like in order to experiment, you need to have that infrastructure as well. Like we also lack some infrastructure in India. So I guess if we work on that as well, we can promote more and more people into rocket science. So another thing, like as an aerospace startup, what would you suggest? Like, should we more focus more on building small components of the rocket and like softwares of the rocket and all of these stuff, or the whole end-to-end system, like the whole launch vehicle?
Work on your strength, and it might be software. That might be your strength. Yeah, so work to your strength. I mean, putting an entire launch vehicle together is an extremely challenging undertaking, and people think it's achievable. And achievable is probably not the right word, because it certainly is. However, it's extremely difficult, and try and find a niche market with things. And because the space industry is going to be getting bigger, for instance, space junk, cleaning up space junk, that's going to be, I mean, find a way to do that. That'll be a niche which is going to be huge in the future. But yeah, I'd work to your strengths and find other people's strengths and work together and start small and build your way up. It would be the way I'd do it.
Okay. So I guess we are catering to a lot of audience which is just a beginner in all of these. So if you can explain the niche market better, like what is exactly meant by the niche market?
Well, you might have a like I saw a rocket once. It was designed. It carried a piece of equipment that was done for a skydiving company. They wanted to test it to really high acceleration forces. I saw another one were advertising. They launched a balloon into the stratosphere. Now, technically, okay, that didn't go to space. However, it got to the sort of near space environment where the sky was black, and it it had that. So that was an advertising market, and maybe some people, like I know one man who produces coffee here in Brisbane, and he wants his coffee on the International Space Station. So to start that, he might put that on a small rocket, and so advertising is one platform. Photography, air sampling, where you don't need to go really high, you can do it suborbital. All those sorts of small jobs you can do. Do microgravity experimentations in small rockets. It doesn't go for very long, however, it's done at a fraction of the price. So, that sort of thing, I think, is if you could find a niche in that, work very hard towards it, would be profitable.
Great. That would be a great advice for all the young students and entrepreneurs out there. So, also, I would like to ask about some advanced rocket technologies as well that you might be interested in. Like, I want to know from you, like, which are the technologies like advanced, like green propellants for this thing, and along with that, some deep exploration technologies as well, like the solar cells and all of these, which are quite sci-fi. But what do you think about that? Like the way we humans are evolving and the way we humans are learning, is there a way that we can explore deep space with all of these advanced technologies?
I'm sure there is. I'm sure there is. I mean, we've got this pesky speed of light limit, which is a real pain in the neck. That sort of really inhabits everything. Whether quantum computing could find a solution to transmitting data at very high speeds would be useful. But yeah, I mean, you're only limited by your imagination. That's what Albert Einstein said. He said imagination is more important than knowledge. So you've got to exercise your imagination and work that imagination and come up with solutions, and just don't instantly go to YouTube or Google to try and find the solution. That's the important thing.
Great. So yeah, so we are also catering to audience who are not completely into aerospace, like not core aerospace, but they are into the mixture of what we are giving as Spartificial, like the integration of artificial intelligence and space exploration, right? So an advice to audience who are just getting into these technologies, where AI and all of these are getting into picture along with aerospace. So I would like to know that what would be that one advice you would like to give? Like, should they experiment and go on? Like, should they try to do different things which are not common or general in order to succeed?
I think so, because then you might discover something really amazing. I mean, just building a solid propellant rocket and launching it, that's hard as it is. However, if you want to, your little pet project could lead to something really amazing. So I'd say go for it. And whatever it is you do, just make sure it's something you're really passionate about, something you really want. And then you won't mind spending hours and hours and hours of your own time making it happen. So that's find that passion and really go for it, and don't let anyone tell you can't do it. Work and find a solution. That's what I'd say.
Uh, Great. So thank you so much, Cran, for this wonderful time. I think it is very valuable for the audience who are watching this. It was great interacting with you.
Fantastic. Thank you for having me. I enjoyed the chat.